Welcome back to another video. I am about to do a multi-step process for you, laying out my entire step-by-step script slash process for making cold calls as a real estate agent to property owners. This is not for sell by owner. This is not how to handle expired listings. This is simply circle prospecting. And if you don't know what circle prospecting is, it's like calling around a just listed or just sold. Some people call that cold calling. Some people call it calling around just listed, just sold. I call it circle prospecting because it's like calling around a circle or a radius in the area. Having said that, let's get right into it. So the first thing that you want to do when you're making cold calls to property owners is assume the name. And what that looks like is you're ringing the phone and the person says hello and you're like, "Hi, John." You don't say, "Is this John?" or "Can I speak with John?" or "Is John available?" You're saying, "Hi, John." That is called assuming the name. It assumes a level of familiarity without telling them or lying to them and saying, "Hey, I know you," because you don't know them. But you want them to think, "Hey, maybe this is somebody that I know," but you're not lying and saying that you do know them. So that helps, because usually they'll say, "Yeah, this is John," or they'll just say, "Who's this?" and then you go ahead and pitch. And so usually if it's not John, they're not going to ask you who you are typically. So that's that. Once you assume the name and once you get clarification that you're talking to the right person, you're like, "Hey, John, this is Fred Smith, real estate agent from XYZ company. How are you?" That is your cold call opener. Everybody talks about the best cold call opener to use in real estate sales or anything or any other industry. And the cold call opener that I have found the most effective is just to tell them exactly who you are, like first and last name, the type of professional you are, real estate agent, from whatever company that you're affiliated with. And if it's a big box company that everyone knows, then that's even better. And then you say, "How are you?" There's no need to say, "Oh, can I steal 30 seconds of your time? This is a cold call. Do you want to hang up now or roll the dice?" or whatever these cheesy, cold call openers that people use are. You can simply just keep it generic. Yeah, there's an argument for using another type of cold call opener, but this one works just fine. It's good enough. And in fact, it is pretty good, actually. And it's pretty good when you combine it with assuming the name at the front end of the call like I just described. So that is step number 2. Once they say, "I'm good, how are you?" You're like, "I'm good, Fred. Thanks for asking. Fred, and then you say, this is the third step, "Fred, am I catching you at an okay time for literally just a minute or two?" And I say those exact words in that exact way. And the reason I'm doing that is, number one, I'm not asking if it's a good time for a cold call, because it's never a good time for a cold call. I'm not asking if it's a bad time for a cold call, because it's always a bad time for a cold call. I'm asking if it's an okay time, and the qualifier is for just a minute or two. And I say it that way, like I trail off. I don't just say, "Am I catching you at an okay time for a minute or two?" I say, "Am I catching you at an okay time for just a minute or two?" Say it that way and end the phrase "for just a minute or two," like trail off like that. That is like neuro-linguistic programming, I guess, that helps elicit their response that you want. And I'm genuinely trying to remind them that I'm only going to take a minute or two of their time, which is the truth. And then you got to actually stick to it, which sometimes can be hard, but if they don't have a real estate need, it is literally going to be a minute or two. And if they have a real estate need, then they're not going to mind talking to you for more than a minute or two anyway, if it goes longer than that. So they'll either say a few different things. If they say, "Yeah, I have a minute," then you go ahead and pitch. They might say, "No, I don't really have time to talk, but what's this about?" Once they say, "What's this about?" you go ahead and pitch. And then sometimes they might say, "Well, I don't have time right now." And they might tell you, "Hey, can you call me after 5 p.m. when I'm off work?" Or they might suggest another time. Or if they say, "No, I don't have time to talk right now," but they stay on the phone, like they're not hanging up on you, I'll say, "Okay, no problem. what would be a better time for me to connect with you for literally just a minute or two? And I'm asking that exact same question with that exact same phraseology. The reason is I want to re-emphasize to them that it's only going to take a minute or two. At that point, usually they'll say, well, call me in an hour. Call me after 5 p.m. when I get off work. And then, or sometimes they'll say, hey, call me after 5 p.m. when I get off work, but would you mind just quickly telling me what this is regarding? And even though you're agreeing that you're going to call them after 5 p.m., but once they say what's this regarding, you're just going to go ahead and pitch. If they still want you to call them after 5 p.m. when they get off work, you can do that. But once they say what's it regarding, that is your time to pitch, and you better be brief when they say what's it regarding. They don't want to listen to a whole explanation. So that's that. So that's that part of the process. Once they say, you're like, now when you ask them, like how you pitch is, hey, so and so, Fred, I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but my team and I just listed or just sold a house around the corner from yours, or not far from yours if it's not truly around the corner or in the vicinity. It should be in the vicinity, but if it's not super close, and they might not know the street, then you can just say, hey, we sold a house not too far from yours, because that is relatively always true. And I didn't know if there's anything in the world that I can do for you. And I don't say, hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? Now, if they don't know what anything in the world means, like if they say, oh, I don't know what you mean by, can you do anything in the world for me? If they're like, I'll say, as it relates to real estate, I don't know. And I'll just say, I don't know if you're looking to buy or sell, but just wanted to see if I could be helpful in some way. And I'm re-emphasizing there that I'm trying to be helpful. That's why I don't ask if they want to buy or sell. That's amateur hour, is people saying, oh, I'm a real estate agent, do you want to buy or sell? And then a lot of amateurs will say, well, if you don't want to buy or sell, do you know any neighbors who want to buy or sell? We've got lots of demand in the area. That's really amateur. I just say, hey, we do business in your area. We have done business in your area. We are doing business in your area. Is there anything in the world I can help you with? And they will usually say, well, no, I'm not looking to make any sort of move. Okay, no problem. Is there an agent that you would work with if you did ever have a need? And they'll usually say, yeah, my cousin's an agent. And usually I'll say, okay, is that somebody that you would be 100% loyal to, or would you have a degree of flexibility as far as who you would choose to reach out to? I'm always asking that second and third question, because they're always going to have their defenses up saying they already don't have a real estate need, they already have an agent, but I'm asking the question again in a different way, because a lot of times they'll drop their defenses and say, okay, no, I don't really, yeah, I have a cousin that's an agent, but I don't know if I would use them or not. And I'm like, okay, well, I gotcha. It sounds like you don't have a real estate need now. On the off chance that you do ever have a need, even if it's 5, 10, 15 years down the road, I would certainly love to be a resource for you. Is it okay to stay in touch? Once they give you permission to stay in touch, your next question is going to be, what is the best email address for you? And the reason you don't ask for the email before you get permission to stay in touch, then it's a sequential order for a reason. Once they give you permission to stay in touch, then you ask for the email, because it's an easier ask. But if you don't ask permission to stay in touch and you just skip right to asking for the email, you're less likely to get it. It doesn't mean that you won't ever get it, but you're less likely to. So that's super important. Now, that's if they don't have a real estate need. Now, if they do have a real estate need, if they say, yeah, we're actually thinking about making a move at some point, just not yet, that's usually what they'll say, because they want you to know, hey, I'm not ready to move right yet. Don't sell my house out from under me, all that kind of stuff. And so usually when somebody says, yeah, we're going to eventually move, and I'll just say, okay, gotcha. If they say something, if they're vague like that, like, yeah, we're going to eventually make a move, probably. This is probably not our forever home. Okay. Are you thinking that that's likely going to happen? I know you can't guarantee anything, but are you thinking that's likely going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? Or further out than that? Or is it hard to say? I'll say those things because I want to give them like either or answers. I don't want to lock them into an answer and say, hey, are you thinking about doing that in the next 3 to 5 years? Sometimes they're just going to say, yeah, that sounds about right, when it could be in the next year or two. So I'm just trying to give them either or. And also, when you're asking these prospects questions, they feel less pressured when you are like giving them either or answers. so they don't feel like you're pigeonholing them into a certain answer. And so that's like I don't want to say a psychological or sales technique. It's really just a communication technique. If I'm asking a friend or a family member something, depending on like I obviously in every interaction I have a goal of communicating a certain thing. So I'll ask a friend or a family member a question in that same way. If I'm trying to elicit a certain answer, it's not manipulative. It's just what normal communication is, because usually in any communication I have, there's some sort of objective I'm trying to accomplish. It doesn't have to be self-serving. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, and so usually they'll start to tell me, okay, this is what we're thinking about doing, and this is the time frame we're thinking about doing. I'm like, I gotcha. Like, and just out of curiosity, what's making? I don't say, why are you looking to make a move? That's another thing you don't want to do. You don't ever want to ask, why are you looking to make a move? You want to say, gotcha. So just out of curiosity, like, what's making you think that you might eventually make this move instead of just staying in your home indefinitely? And usually they'll say something like, well, my husband is retiring soon, or my kids are graduating soon, or whatever. But you don't say the word why. If you say the word why, it puts up their defenses. And they don't always want to tell you why they want to make a move, because they feel like you're a slimy real estate agent who's going to take advantage of them and capitalize on them. Maybe they're behind on their mortgage. Maybe there's all sorts of financial reasons why they're going to make a move. And they don't want to feel compelled to tell you that, because then it feels like they're giving up their leverage. So you ask questions that are not likely to put up their defenses. So that's what, and then again, once they tell you what they're going to do, when they're going to make a move, one of the things you can do is, hey, listen, I got your email. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you my contact information. Whenever you're ready, feel free to reach out to me, give me a call or email me or text me, and let me know that you're thinking about making a move and it's close by, and or it's getting there, and you want to know what your home's worth, and you want to know what you should do to your home to get it prepped for selling. Give me a holler and I can do that. Now sometimes I'll pitch that on call. If it's a really friendly call, I'll just say, hey, I don't know if you would find this helpful at all, but one of the things that my partner and I do for property owners who are thinking about making a move, and even ones that aren't, is we let them know what their home is worth, what the net proceeds would be if they did sell, and just that sort of thing. Like, we let them know what to do to the home and what not to do to the home, to make sure that when they get the home prepped for selling, they're not putting a bunch of money and time into it that they're not going to get a return on their investment for. And then I say, would you find it helpful if we did that for you? I don't say, can we do that for you? Or let's go ahead and do that for you. I don't do an assumptive close on that one. Assumptive closes, people in sales love to do that, especially real estate agents. I don't. On a cold call, and there's certain situations I might do an assumptive close, like a friend or a family member who's telling me they're already going to move, but somebody who's like this, who's still, their defenses are going to be up, I just say, hey, listen, would you find it helpful if we let you know what your home is worth? Like, no one is going to say, in their right mind, if they're truly being honest with themselves, no one's going to say, no, that wouldn't be helpful. They're either going to say, yes, it would, let's set up an appointment, or hey, yes, it would, but not right now. Can we do this sometime later? Can you follow up with me in a couple months? Sure, perfect. I got your email, or what's a good email for you? Let's rock and roll. I appreciate your time. We'll touch base down the road. And you think you're going to be leaving money on the table when you do that, when you let them go. That's not true. You are showing them that you're not desperate, that you're not high pressure, that you are there as a consultant to help them if and when they are ready. And if their plans change, you're also cool as a cucumber that way too. And so that's kind of how I do it. So with the yeses, I find out what their time frame is, offer a home evaluation when they're ready. With the nos, I say, hey, is there an agent you would work with if you did ever have a need? Not, I'd love to be a resource for you. Is that okay to stay in touch? They say yes. Boom, what's a good email for you, or what's the best email for you? And then I get it and I say, okay, I'll send you my contact information shortly. Have a good day. And that's how I do my cold calls. I hope that helps. If you guys have any further questions about this process, just drop the comments down below. And if you have any feedback about how I presented this information, feel free to be brutally honest about that as well. Thanks for following. And if you want to subscribe, like, hit the bell notification, that'd be great.